We know the lady that sold him the drugs. She cashed-strapped him the drugs. We know where she met him at. And we gave all this information to the Tacoma Police Department, and they didn't do nothing because they said it was an accidental overdose. But if I would have invited you over to my house and made you dinner and put some poison in that dinner and you died, I would be in jail right now. And that's what I don't understand. It's not that I want vengeance, but this pain that I feel, I don't ever want another parent to feel this pain. He was a beautiful person. Just because he had a problem and an addiction, it doesn't mean that he deserved to die. And that's what I'm more upset about. I mean, he lived a good life. We worked in Wyoming together. Tyler had done more than most 29-year-olds have done in their life. But to be poisoned and thrown away by a police department that doesn't want to do their job, it's unbearable to me. He was into sports, basketball. He loved Dallas Cowboy football more than anything in the world. He played football. He played quarterback. He had asthma real bad, so I brought him up playing basketball because I didn't want him to be in the grass. And he wanted to play football so bad, so I finally let him sign up, and he wound up being quarterback through all the years that he played. He did really good until he got up to his teenage years, like most kids, and he moved out. He lived with me until he was about 16, and then he moved out with his mom. And his mom and I were real close. We didn't keep the kids. She lived down the road not too far, maybe a mile and a half, her and her husband. So he was able to ride his bike down there. And I think, I don't know what it was, why he wanted to move, and he moved out, and then I'm not putting any blame anywhere. He wound up quitting school, I think, his junior year of high school. Not really sure why, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to put any blame on anyone. And he started working pretty early, and a couple of years there, we were always really close, and then those years, maybe 17 to 19, we'd talk, but he was doing his own thing. And he went to Texas to work in the oil fields at 19. And him and his buddies, and I think there was about 6 of them, lived in a little camper, and they worked in the oil fields over there. And then he came back, and then for the next few years, him and I worked together for a lot of years. Yeah, we were really close in our adult life, even in his childhood years. Like I say, the teens go through their time with their parents, and they realize they don't know everything. And he loved me. He loved his mother. He loved everyone. He has 4 other siblings, but he was really close with his sister, Jackie. They grew up together. She's 3 years older, so she was like his guardian angel, and so it's been really rough on her. And he has a younger sister, Caitlin, from her mother, and she's having a hard time dealing with it too, because those 3 were really close. But he passed away up in Tacoma, Washington, with my oldest boy. He was having. I didn't realize he moved up there to get away from here, and no one really knew what he was doing. I thought he had a drinking problem, and I knew he did coke and things like that. I'm not naive about that, but I didn't know he was doing fentanyl. I caught wind of it before he went to Washington, and I went and asked him. I said, "Is it true?" And he said, "Dad, I've tried it, but it's not a problem." So come to find out after the fact that he had been doing it more than he said, that he led up to be. And he went to Washington. He went in June of 24 because he wanted to get away from here and start over. And he said he had to get away from his friends. he went up there to live with my oldest boy. I guess they had talked, and, he's an adult. I don't know everything. And he went up there in June, and he was doing really good, from my understanding. And he went to work for Amazon and was saving money, and he, paying my oldest boy back. He was paying rent, paying my oldest boy back for the plane ticket, just doing well. And but he didn't like Amazon. He didn't like working that night shift. And then in July, his best friend Carlos passed away, and I think it kind of sent him down in a kind of a spiral. And seeing from his phone, we could see that he started calling the drug dealer here and there, and was getting drugs. And this is after the fact, after he passed away. But he came back. They didn't have the funeral for his best friend till September, beginning of September. So I had sold Tyler an old truck, and it was here, and he needed some wheels over there in Tacoma because he was borrowing my son's car. So when he came back for his buddy Carlos's funeral, he flew in, and then him and I drove back, and I spent about 10 days with him the month before he passed away. And it's probably... It was a blessing. Anyway, he quit. He wanted to do something else because he was a construction worker, and he was a good painter. He did everything, but he was really good at painting. And he got a job as a painter, and he called me a couple of days before that and said, he was going to get a job as an apprentice doing something else. Now I know why he didn't get it, because he was using drugs. Yeah, and then we, didn't know that either. Because when I was over there, we went riding around and applied, and he found this real nice apprenticeship program, and it was on the docks in the water over there in Tacoma. So we were excited for him because they called, and he gave me an excuse, some excuse that why he couldn't make it. But I had lent him money to buy some work boots to start. So he missed the first day of training, and I was like, well, I was getting, I didn't understand what was going on. So the couple days later, he found a job painting, and I sent him, he told me he needed gas money, and I sent him gas money, and that's some of the money he bought fentanyl with. And what was so beautiful about when Tyler passed is that it was like $10,000 that's to get him over here and for the funeral and everything, and his friends and family and our community, everyone donated the money to pay for everything, to get him here, for his funeral, you name it, everything. And that's how loved he was. Yeah, and it was amazing. And his mom and I, of course it was unexpected, to get that call at midnight, October 3rd. My son found him face down on his bed, and he was dead. He was in his sweat shorts, and his phone was in his pocket. So when the coroner came and got him from my son's house, they took him to the coroner there in Tacoma, and when they shipped him here, the guy at the funeral handed me his phone. He had her picture on the phone, like he knew if something happened to him. He had her picture on the phone, so we went and looked on social media. We seen who she was, and that's how we found out everything. Because all we had to do was look up her name. He says we don't have the resources. Yeah. Apparently, the cops don't have resources to do anything in any state. I remember telling my son, try to do something, because my son called me, and I think my son already knew he was passed. He just waited for the coroner to tell him, to confirm it, because he walked in, and because October 1st, I spoke to him at about 7 o'clock, and we can see by his text messages he was meeting his drug dealer at 9:55. I know what she looks like. He took a picture of her. We know everything. I looked her up in the Washington courts. She's a convicted drug dealer. A convicted drug dealer. And like I said, it's not vengeance I want. And yeah, I do want vengeance. She sold my son poison. And it's not vengeance. I just want her off the streets. I'm in recovery myself, so I understand addiction. So I totally understand it. And it's, just because someone's addicted to something doesn't mean they're a bad person. You see a lot of the people here at the bus stop, homeless, and I feel bad for them. I work for the city of Albuquerque. I see a lot of it, and I live in this city. But not everybody that has a drug or an alcohol problem is homeless and and in a bad way. What was done to my son was wrong. It was wrong. And now we're getting it again from the police department in Tacoma. When I got that call, in the middle of the night, my oldest boy found him face down on his bed. He suffers from severe asthma, and from what I've been reading about fentanyl, it attacks your respiratory system. And I think it hit him, and because he fell flat on it, on the bed on his face. The last time I spoke with him was 7:30 Monday night. That was October 1st, and he was found about 11 o'clock October 2nd at night. And he was pronounced dead, just right October 3rd. My son called me and said he was cold, and it's just, it's something you can't believe when you get that call. And then I can still hear his mother screaming on the other side of the phone when I had to call her and tell her. It's awful. It's every guilty feeling that you've ever had in the world about your kids kind of hits you in the moment like that also. So sometimes it feels like he's just in Tacoma, and but I haven't stopped mourning him. I plan on fighting for his life the rest of my life. I just want to, speaking to different people that are going through it, and I just want to put a stop to this drug. I want it to go away, and whatever I have to do to help it make it go away, I'm going to do whatever I can. You hear about the fentanyl crisis, and you hear about it, and you say, "Oh, this is bad, and it goes in one ear and out the other. And then when it happens to you, it's like you ran into a brick wall." At his funeral, his mother and I kind of we're not ashamed of our son, so we told the pastor what he died of, and the pastor pretty much said, yeah, and the church was full. And hopefully that saved someone's life in there. My son was much more than fentanyl. It was much more than his addiction. There's much more to him. He just had a problem. And, and that's how I feel. He was a beautiful, beautiful person. And people have problems, just unfortunately, it was that. So I'm not ashamed of my son one bit of anything. I kind of feel guilty in a way. I've been thinking about my own way I've been feeling, my own, can't think of the word right now, but my own grief. And a couple of days ago, I kind of I've been kind of in a funk. I kind of realized my son found him. My oldest found him, and I'm like, gosh, my poor son, But he was actually in Germany for a month, and with his mom and grandma and all them. So hopefully, we've kind of spoke, but we've skirted the fact because we're like the man type of thing, and we're kind of skirting the fact. And he has a picture of my son the night before he passed, and I told him I want to see it, but I'm just afraid to look at it right now. He's, he had finally gotten the job he wanted, and he seemed happy. And addicts, that's a bad thing for an addict too. When they're happy, they want to celebrate, and it's always just one more time. And I'm sure that's what was going through his head, because he wanted to do better. He didn't want me to know. He didn't want his brother to know. Sure. And I know that. I just knew how special he was, and I know he wanted to do good. And he was on the verge of that breakthrough, because he was actually out exercising, running. I'd mentioned earlier he did the Tough Mudder, but he was honestly going out and jogging, because you'd see him on his post, filming himself jogging and walking walking the dogs, just active. And yeah, that's why I couldn't believe it when he told me that. And then my son said there was drug paraphernalia next to him, and I couldn't believe it. And then after we got his phone and had to go through his phone and stuff, and then we found out a little more how deep it was. And my oldest boy is really, really health conscious and active, and lifts weights, and does triathlons and stuff. So my son, being in his brothers, and they were doing it together, eating right, eating chicken and rice. My son, Tyler did tell me he was tired of eating chicken and rice, because that's what my oldest boy lives on. But the best thing that happened, we got in a little scuffle, or I wouldn't say scuffle, a little argument about a week before he passed away over that I'm tired of eating chicken and rice. I said, well, go get your own food. And we kind of got into it, but we can never be mad at each other, him and I. And then about 45 minutes later, hey, we're talking like nothing happened. Because him and I, we could never be upset with each other. We spent so much time together working and through our lives. And of course we were father and son, but we respected each other a lot. And we both said the best time of our life we ever had was when we worked in Wyoming together. We worked probably 65 hours a week. And don't get me wrong, we used to go drink beer at the bar, things of that nature. We had a good time. We knew everybody. It was a small little town called Alpine, Wyoming, about 25 miles from Jackson Hole. So we're in a beautiful part of Wyoming, the western side. And it was amazing and beautiful. Making some good money, and we worked on a bridge, and we were I was on and off there 2 years, and he spent a whole year straight there. And the thing about Tyler is he worked in so many different areas and genres of construction. So he was pretty much a jack of all trades. He like I said at the end, he was a really good painter, because he was an artist anyway. So he was good at painting, and I'd always tell him, just make that your trade, because you're usually warm, you're inside, and it's not really hard on your body. So, and that's what he was doing, he left Amazon and finally got that job where he was going to be making some good money, and that's what he was doing when he passed away. He got a job painting for a guy over in Tacoma. I actually got I drove up, or after his funeral, my son and I flew back, my oldest boy, because I wanted to get his things out of my son's house. It wouldn't be fair to him to leave all that there. I packed up all his stuff, and I left. We got to Tacoma about 7 that night. I got to Seattle about 7, and then got to Tacoma about 8:30. I packed up all of his stuff, and I found those boots with the paint on it. So I drove. I just drove all the way back without stopping. I drove all the way from Washington back to Albuquerque, and I didn't even stop to stop. Just couldn't. His truck was just like the way he left it, I was walking out of my house every day looking at that truck, and it was killing me. So I gave it to his sister. I said, "Here, you can have it." It's just, they were really close, and it just didn't. It means a lot to me, but it means more to her because she's devastated and broken, But I lent him he asked me to send him the money for those boots. But the best thing I think that happened in his life is he got baptized a few months before that, and that makes because we believe in God and Jesus, and it makes it it gives us some kind of comfort. Yeah, he was actually going to church over there too, in Tacoma, and he had posted something on Facebook. He said I should have went to church because Dallas lost again. He didn't go that day or something. They were playing early or something. I don't want vengeance on that lady. I just get worked up sometimes. The one that sold him the drugs. Yeah. I just want her to stop. There's a parent. I don't want another parent out there like feeling the way I do and feeling like his mother and his siblings. Because, it hasn't even been 4 months yet. I want to be a voice for my son. I don't want him to ever be forgotten. And I just want to fight for him. He was beautiful. I can't say it enough. I still cry every day when I get off of work, thinking about him. So it's not so much I don't know what I'm going to do for him, because right now I feel like I'm not going to say he's going to be forgotten, but I'm just so hurt that he's gone. And he spoke to everybody. It wasn't like he was God. Gosh. That's what my oldest boy said. He's always on the phone talking to someone back home. But, we spoke every day. He spoke with me, and I think he spoke with his mother every day. And I know he spoke with his sisters. And that was like a daily, that's just the kind of guy he was. He was family all the way. I have a big poster that we've had made of him, and I tell him every morning, well, it's basically, I'm like, dang, Tyler, I'm like, because I miss you, I tell him that often.